Hi, my name is Penny Beans, and I've been coming to First Covenant Church since 2000. Today I want to share with you my testimony about how God has been working in my life this year. It started in January when I had the stomach flu, and as I was getting sick, I pulled a muscle in my lower back, and it caused extreme internal and external pain, and it began to really interfere with my ability to have bowel movements. So I started going to doctors here in Salina. After exhausting everything I could here, I went on to Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, hoping to find the answer. And after all the specialized treatments and procedures, all they could tell me was that I was a complicated case. And of course, I was just devastated. I was really hoping for an answer and for a cure. By that time, I had really, found myself with a lot of medical debt. And I wasn't able to work because of the pain that I was in, constantly. At one point, I was having to take stimulants and muscle relaxers and antidepressants and medication for nerve pain, as well as sleep aids, just to get by each day. Where I once was hopeful was replaced with just deep depression and despair. I didn't know what to do, what was going to happen. And as I began to think on that, I began to wish I was dead. I didn't want to live anymore. I didn't want to face living the rest of my life the way I was feeling with pain. And my sister at one point thought it was important to compile a list of names, a suicide watch. And so they would call and check in on me to make sure I was doing okay or how I was doing, each day. While I felt like I was abandoned and alone, because I prayed and I didn't hear anything. I heard nothing. And that there was a point that I couldn't even pray anymore. I was done. And I didn't want to hear anybody talk to me about God. I felt so alone. I felt so abandoned and betrayed. But even though I felt like that, God was working. God's always working. Even though we don't feel it or see it, He's always working. He proved that and showed that. As I look back, I can see that He brought so many people into my life to stand in the gap for me to pray for me when I could no longer do it. They brought meals. They just came over and sat with me, and they just let me cry and express my fear, my anger, my sense of abandonment. They sent literature so that I had, uplifting and inspirational things to read. They just sat there and they just listened to me. They didn't judge me, even though I was telling them, at times I don't want to live anymore. They didn't judge me, and I'm so thankful. It was a struggle. It was a struggle for weeks and weeks and weeks, and which added up to nearly 5 months. There was one point though, in June, I felt good enough to come to church, and so I did. So I was singing the praise song. It was as if God had just breathed a fresh breath of His Spirit into mine. It was just so freeing. I could just feel all the burden that I had been carrying just begin to melt, and I began to cry as my tears began to fall and my hands began to raise and surrender. I just felt completely free. And I'm not saying that I was instantly healed. I am saying that at that moment, spiritually and emotionally, I was free. I felt a lightness and I felt joy that only God can give. Over time, my physical ailments began to fade, and I was able to go back to work, and they were willing to place me into a position that was a whole lot less strenuous on my body. I was able to wean myself off of all the medications that I had once had to take. And so little by little, I was able to wean myself off of each and every one of those. And only by the grace of God. It wasn't my doing. It was only by the grace of God. I'm just very thankful. As I began to improve my, physically, my My love for the mornings, for the sunrise, began to return, along with the passion to take pictures of them. And so I got out there and I started taking pictures of the sunrises and the sunsets and, anything I could capture. And after doing that for several weeks, I was going over some of my favorite photos, and a scripture came to mind. The heavens will glorify God's name. And at that moment, it was as if I sensed God ask me and say, and how much more do I want my children to glorify me, Penny? And at that moment, I knew I was supposed to give my testimony and tell you how gracious God is and how merciful He is. I just want to say that there might be someone right now that's going through a situation that you just can't fix. What you can do is you can sit with them and just be there and listen to them and hear them. You can invite them over to your home so they don't feel like they're alone, because when you're going through a trial that you have no control over, it is very lonely. It is very lonely. You can send them cards. You can send them scriptures. There's a lot of things you can do when someone's going through something that's bigger than them, bigger than us. We were not meant to do life alone. And God promises. He promises to never leave us or forsake us. He promises that He will leave the 99 to find and to rescue that one. And He also promises that when we walk through the waters, that He will be with us. And when we walk through the rivers, that they will not sweep over us. And when we go through the fires, they will not burn us. We will not be set ablaze. Thank you.